Hello, my name is Samar. I also go by Sam or First Time Panner. And yes, that is my laundry basket in the background. This will be a kind of like review, first impression, thoughts, recommendations, swatches, everything video about the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 7 Freedom Palette number 2. I don't really know the exact full name. I could just read it off of my screen that I have here. Too late. I will be doing as thorough of a review slash recommendation-ish video as I can. For this palette, I have a lot of thoughts, but first I just wanted to say I filmed this look that I have right now. I compared the Ilia Baked Face palette with the, sorry if that blinded you, the Sephora Collection Baked Face palette. So that's what's on my face. If you couldn't tell the difference, then maybe you want to go check that video out, or if you could tell the difference, you should still check the video out if you were thinking of buying any face palette, especially these two this year. That should be my next video that comes out after this, hopefully, if I upload these on time. But back to the topic of this video. Listen, before I get into all the specifics, I'm filming this actually after I filmed all 4 looks that I'm doing with this palette, which is why, if you'll be able to tell, my palette looks slightly different than the original layout. But I will say, don't want to spoil anything, I was going into this fully expecting to love this palette more than like any other palette I've ever had. I really was in love with last year's Freedom palette, which was the first Freedom palette Danessa Myricks came out with. And I thought this was just going to be like a round 2 just with mattes this time, so like even more options for looks. And I just like know I really love the formula she comes out with, and I love the packaging, and it was the exact same type of packaging. So I was going into this thinking this would be like top purchase of the year, recommend everyone to get it. And again, you should watch the full video for my full thoughts, because I really go into detail, but I will say that ended up not exactly being the case. So I'll also do a recap at the end of the video, but I'll just get into the stats. This palette retails for $128. However, while I'm filming this, it is currently the Sephora sale, so depending on your tier you can get money off, and then I'm sure this will also be at some sort of discount. I know Danessa Myricks does 10% off for new customers. Maybe she will also have this palette on sale if it doesn't sell out by the end of the year. Yeah, retails for $128 full price, but you probably could somewhere along the line on some platform get a discount. I will just say I bought this full price, but I did use a $100 Rouge gift card, so technically I really only paid $28 if you take into account those points that I used toward that gift card. The palette does come very well packaged. I mentioned this because I already filmed this intro, but I had to refilm it once I had all my final thoughts. So I do mention that this palette, when it was delivered to me, my delivery person literally dropped it on the ground and then kicked it to my door. I did eventually have one casualty in the palette, which could be for a reason other than that, but I will say that this palette did, when I first opened it, it was perfect because it comes, first of all, double wrapped in bubble wrap, so there's 2 different layers of outer bubble wrap. Sephora sent me another palette because of that cracked shade, which is why I have a brand new one. So I'm not going to touch this one. I just want to show you how it's packaged in here. So once you take it out of both layers of bubble wrap, this is what the outer box looks like. So it has the full name, Lightwork Volume 7 Freedom Palette. I do want to keep this one kind of like sealed. There's tape on the side, so I'm not going to break that tape to open this up. But once you open it up, there's It comes in even like a smaller box within the box that houses the palette, and then it has multiple more layers of like bubble wrap and foam padding, not only outside of the palette but also even under the, here's what the palette looks like, even under the panels, because this outer shell is its own palette, and it has a foam layer underneath these panels that pop out so that the shadows don't break with that movement. Then there's plastic covering the entirety of the outer packaging, and this mirror, which is also a lid, which I'll get into. And I know that was all boring stuff, but basically all that is to say this palette comes very, very well packaged. So you probably, unless your courier does something even more extreme than mine did and just like drops it in the ocean, your palette will most likely come to you perfectly fine. Now let's get into the actual mechanics of this packaging. I will link last year's video below because I do a very thorough video on this palette as well for the Lightwork 6. But this is the most innovative, creative, useful eyeshadow packaging, or just kind of like palette makeup packaging that I've ever seen. First of all, as I said, this mirror pops out as a lid because, and I kind of alluded to this as well, if you haven't seen this, each of these 3 panels in here pop out. Also, there's the shade that broke. It was the black. But you can take all 3 of these panels out, and this itself, the outer shell, is its own Z palette. And then these individual shades, I'm gonna try to do it gracefully as I can on camera, but there's a little divot on like these 3 lines here. There's a divot so that you can take the shadow out carefully. I'm trying not to dig my nail into this thing. Okay, I just couldn't do it holding it up like that, but you can pop these out too. And these are magnetic, so you can kind of mix and match within these panels. You can also, of course, swap them between panels, and then you can put them like just in the general Z palette that is the outer shell, and you can also put them in any other Z palette because these shades are magnetic and they're also labeled on the back, so you can always figure out exactly which shade it is. Then I have last year's palette. Because that mirror is a lid, you can also stack the panels on top of each other and just use the mirror on top. And this palette also comes with a case so that if you do put these together, and you also don't have to put all 3 together, you can just use one, of course, but this case fits all 3 together. And I've been using my first outer shell as sorry, the ring lights are so bright because I'm filming this after the sun has set, so it's very dark in here, but I'm using this as my own like customized magnetic face palette. So I've been keeping my Lightwork 6 in this case, and it just kind of pops open like this, and you can just more gracefully than I did, but you can slide it in here and then it snaps back shut. I moved twice in the past 6 months, and having my palette like this was so much easier than having a bigger palette like this, just because it's a lot smaller, more compact, and it's sturdier when it's kind of all smushed together. And none of my shades broke or anything like that. The mirror is just fine in there, so I can vouch that at least when you have the palette like this, it is perfect for travel and even moving across state lines twice. According to the description on Sephora, which again is where I purchased this palette is described as a magnetic stackable all over face palette blending iconic pigments with everyday artistry and wearability. As you can see, and part of the controversial aspect of this year's palette is there are mattes in here. Because this is the same price as last year's palette, a lot of people were saying it really shouldn't be the same price because there are mattes and they're not as expensive to formulate as like the special shifty duochrome, multi-chrome, kind of just, you know, like special shades in the palette. I will say, just in defense of this palette, not only have prices gone up because of inflation, but also I would say that this makes the palette, even if it might not have been more expensive proportionally to create because of the mattes, I would also say it does add some value, unless you were just trying to use this like purely as a companion palette, but this would be kind of a large companion palette. But unless you were trying to do that, I would say the mattes do add value, because now you can do, sorry if you can hear my neighbor's pipes, someone's showering, I guess. It's just getting louder. But I feel like even though I was able to create full looks with last year's palette, and again you can watch that in that video, which I'll have linked, I feel like it's just, if you are someone who kind of wants a really easy, effortless, kind of like go-to everyday eyeshadow look, adding the mattes makes this a much more user-friendly palette, and it would also make it something that I would wear or be more likely to wear every day, rather than using like a metallic or, you know, a super colorful satin on my eyes as a base color. This I would wear to the office. And I also believe the reason why there are mattes in here, this is just my theory, I think the mattes are in here because this is said to have 10 different formulas in here, and I think it's supposed to represent all of the different formulas her brand has, because this is a celebration palette for the brand's 10th anniversary. And it says, this is the past, present, and future of Danessa Myricks beauty captured in one palette. Lightwork VII celebrates 10 years of artistry, community, and innovation with iconic pigments reimagined for today. This collection blends grounded beauty with surrealist color and texture. Discover 10 versatile finishes, infinitely wearable shades, and the magic of transformation, all in one magnetic, stackable, collectible palette. It's made to mix, made to move, made for everyone, and is Danessa Myricks Beauty's first Lightwork palette with mattes to ground, define, and shape your looks. I agree with the fact that this will ground your looks, and I mean, considering they said the word ground twice, her Groundworks palettes, that's probably where the mattes are coming from. And like it says, there are 10 different finishes. I wouldn't go so far as to say 10 distinct finishes. Sorry, the noise is really distracting me, and I keep getting ring notifications because someone's like walking past my door over and over again. Even though, like, I wouldn't say that you get super different shades, like every 2 or 3 shades in this palette. Technically, most of these individual pans are very slightly different in texture and finish than the one right next to it, so I wouldn't argue that there are not 10 different finishes in here technically. And also, as the description says, this palette is definitely a collectible palette. You can mix and match between the 2 eyeshadow palettes, so I think that is one incentive in making these palettes so versatile that way, because I mean, they're probably looking for a collector following. I have to admit that's one reason why I bought this palette. I think this would be not only with the addition of the mattes, but just the fact that I can mix and match so easily into such a travel-friendly compact, I'll say, that is very intriguing to me. That's something that would definitely add value to my collection, in my opinion. One thing I do want to get into before I start the looks is potential dupes. Now, Danessa Myricks herself did claim that none of these shades in here are repeating shades. I don't know for sure if she just meant between this palette and last year's Freedom palette, or if she meant between all the Lightwork shades, or if she just meant between any of her shades in general. She didn't really specify. And I also will say that none of the shades in here have the same shade names as the previous Freedom palette, so I'm fairly confident in my statement that according to the brand and Danessa Myricks herself, there should be no repeating shades between the 2 Freedom palettes. I will also link below Steph, who is It's Just Steph, her review on this palette, where she compared the Lightwork 7 to all of her previous Lightworks that she owns, and I believe she owns almost all of them. I only have these 2 Lightwork palettes, so I can't do that myself, but you should check out her video. I will say, after watching her video, I completely agreed with her that there were no repeating shades, but as I was using this palette myself, I did notice a lot of kind of shade similarities, not only in just this palette itself. I do think there are some shades that are maybe a little too similar to be in the same palette, but I noticed a lot of shades that were very nearly identical to last year's palette, and I will be swatching those live, and I also took pictures in natural lighting. So even though these claim to be completely unique shades, at least between the two Freedom palettes, I would argue just because you're putting a different name on them, and maybe there might be one or two ingredients in the formula that would technically make this a new shade, you can judge for yourself. But I would say maybe she should have made some different shades, at least in this palette, if she was going to make that claim as well. Before I get into those dupe swatches, I just want to show you the palette up close. Mine will probably look different because, again, I did, not only is the shade cracked, but I did already do all of my looks with this, and one of those looks was kind of mixing and matching all the shades together. So I kept all the panels within the same, like all the shades within their original panel, but within the panel the shades might be switched in the order. So if this is not how it looked when I show you like in my next cut when I start my looks, or if it looks different from how it looks in online pictures, I do apologize if that's a little confusing to you. The shifts don't really show up on camera, unfortunately. I really have tried every single lighting I can. I've tried ring lighting, I tried lamp lighting, I tried low lamp, like low warm tone lamp lighting, and I tried natural lighting from two different directions of sunlight. I cannot, for some reason, get the shift to show up on camera, but all of these special shades, except for the only shades that, or like special metallic shades that don't have shifts, are these three here. Everything else does have a pretty obvious shift. And in natural lighting, hopefully you'll see it on the screen at some point in this video, the shades are extremely sparkly and so beautiful. But let me get into those dupe swatches. The first comparison will be from this first green panel here, and this shade is an iridescent, so it's kind of hard to see. Again, the camera doesn't really show the shifts, but this is a like orangey greenish shift. This is called Golden Child, and then the one I'm comparing it to is from the orange and green panel from the original Freedom palette, and this one, the other iridescent, which pretty much has the same orange green shift, is called Proud. This is what they look like swatched next to each other. This top one is Golden Child, this is Proud. Now in this ring light lighting, the shades of the two shades, like the actual colors, are slightly different in natural lighting, and you probably will see from the pictures in natural lighting they look identical. Artificial lighting, I guess, brings out the actual tone, where this orange looks more kind of like a macaroni yellow, and this one does look like more of a true orange. It's not really picking up any of the green, but they're both giving off a greenish, slightly teal shift. They're just so pretty. I mean, I love both of these shades. I love all of these shades in the palette. I just want to showcase how similar they are. Maybe Golden Child, I would say, has a slight bit more, you can't even see it. Golden Child has a slight bit more teal in the greenish teal shift than Proud has, but they're very, very similar, especially in natural lighting. You cannot tell the difference at all. And I did take all of the pictures of these dupe swatches in natural sunlight. The last two dupes are both from the pink panels of this palette. So the first one in the Danessa Myricks, they're both Danessa Myricks, in the Freedom 2 will be this shade called Love Potion, and then I'll be comparing it with the pink iridescent in the Freedom 1, which is called Serenity. Here are the two shades compared. I think these are the most similar so far in the artificial lighting. They're like pink, orange, green shifts, but in this lighting it looks more like purple. So very beautiful multi-chromes, but they pretty much look the exact same. And the final comparison will be between two straight metallics. So it will be this shade Wish from Freedom 2 versus this shade Dance from Freedom 1. Yeah, these are, again, these are the exact same shade. Like maybe Wish is just like a half a hair deeper than Dance, but absolutely should not be considered two distinct shades in like the Freedom 1 versus the Freedom 2. Now, if this had been like the very first Lightwork that came out 7 years ago now, I mean, I would still consider them to be dupes because even the texture is the exact same when you swatch them. But that would have been a little more understandable because that shade is long gone. Probably even if someone had the palette, they might probably honestly don't have that palette anymore. But for two palettes 1 year after the other and the exact same, you know, kind of form, and to be called different shades altogether. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate this palette, and you'll see me doing my looks. I ended up, spoiler, loving every single look I did. These shades are just so beautiful, but once I started really getting into the shades, you'll see that I started getting a little more confused because I was like, well, all these people are saying, including Danessa Myricks, that there are no dupes, but I'm seeing dupes. You can just see for yourself. But that's all I have for now. I'll get into my 4 looks. This is what the palette looks like, and this retails for $128. Again, I know that's pretty pricey, but if you think of all the special shades in here, and her incredible formula, and the fact that I have dropped that same amount of money on a Natasha Denona palette that had 0 special shades in it, I think that that's a perfectly reasonable price as far as comparison. And I think I'll start with this, surprise, surprise, I'll start with this green panel here because this is the one that I'm most excited about. I love green eyeshadow so much. Here's what this part of the palette looks like. It is so pretty. Again, I haven't swatched these, so this feels, it's kind of nerdy of me. This feels a little exciting. This is so crazy. So here are the swatches, but I kept thinking every time I swatched something that I wasn't really getting anything on my finger because it felt like nothing was actually depositing. But these are just like one layer of each of the shades, and I'm getting like the exact shade, like true to pigment for each of the shades. That's just crazy. Here's a side by side, but I'm pretty sure these mattes are called like true tone mattes or something like that, but these are supposed to be true to pigment. Like what you see in the pan is what deposits on your eyes, and I mean, considering how easy that was to swatch, hopefully that's true. And I'm just gonna use these brushes that I've been using for my makeup all work week. I did wipe them off in a tissue, but we're not gonna be super fancy with the brushes. I mean, if this is the top tier quality that Danessa Myricks is advertising and that I know she can do, then I shouldn't need super fancy eyeshadow brushes. But really quickly, I am going to set my lids. And of course, my cat's water fountain just ran out of water, so it's gonna start making a gurgling sound in the background. Hopefully my phone will just edit that part out naturally. But I just used the Milani eyeshadow primer, and I'm gonna do everything on this one eye, so just try to make one look with this palette. But I feel like I honestly could spend days doing different looks with this because it is so pretty, and like the shifts in here, I don't know if you can see like quite how shifty, because this one here, the darkest metallic, it has a purple shift. It's this one right here. I don't know if you can see it in the pan on camera, but anyway, it is so pretty. But I think I'm going to start with this lighter matte shade here and kind of just like set my eyeshadow primer, but kind of just using it mostly as a base for my eyeshadow. And I'll be looking down because my mirror is below me. I'm just gonna set the lower lash line because I do put eyeshadow primer on my lower lid. You know what, I'm gonna be cliche. I mean, you know, I was doing all that raving about the mattes, may as well use them. So I'm gonna use this other matte and kind of just put it all over my eye. But yeah, that is definitely full pigment but not overwhelming, and I feel like It's blending out pretty nicely. I'm just gonna take this brush and dab in once and tap off a little bit and then run this on my lower lash line just to add some definition. Not really for the color too much, but I want my lower lash line to be balanced. And I think I am going to use glitter glue. Not that I think this palette needs it, but because that's just what I always do. And it feels weird for me to not use glitter primer on my lids before like a metallic or shimmer. Then I'm gonna take this shade and just tap in a tiny bit and put that all around my lid. That went very, very far. I like barely put my finger in there and I very nearly had too much. Even just that one shade on my lid, that is so pretty. Oh my gosh. Like, I know I say this, I probably said this 1,000 times in my previous, oh my gosh, I can't talk, my previous Freedom palette review. But I feel like at every point in my eyeshadow application with these palettes, I feel like I could stop and like I would like my eyeshadow exactly how it was. And this one kind of, it's the shade that's on the bottom here. It seems like more of a topper, so I think I'm just gonna take a little bit of that and just tap it all over. I don't really know if it's going to do much because this shadow is already so sparkly and punchy, but maybe I'll take it a bit like over my transition area. Yeah, I can definitely see it better on top of the matte shadow. That is so pretty, and I feel like it kind of blends the brown and the green together even better. And because I want to use as many shades as possible, I think I'm just going to take a teensy weensy bit of this and put it on my outer eyelid. You can't see, at least from like this angle, I can't see the purple shift quite as much as like swatched or in the pan, but it did add a tiny bit of depth and just merged the metallic and the matte together that much better. And then I may as well use the last shade in the palette, or like this 6-pan panel. So I'm gonna take that shade and put it, just like stamp it right in my inner corner. Okay, that's actually surprising. In the swatch, oh, now I see the shift. Okay, when I look at it from the light above it, it looks like a chartreuse, but when I look at it like this and then how it transferred on my eye, it looks, I mean, you can literally see it, it looks more of an amber color, and it just blended into that lid topper shade so beautifully. But I kind of wonder how I would be, I mean, I'm sure when I see it in a different lighting, it would turn like that chartreuse color that I see here. But I like wonder what I could put it on top of to get it to show that like all the time. But anyway, that's this look with this palette. I usually put something on my lower lash line, but I honestly feel like for now I'm good. I really like the way this looks as it is, and I'm gonna put on some eyeliner and mascara and be right back. I just put on some black eyeliner on my waterline and then plain black mascara because I didn't want to distract from all the colors of this palette. But that's the finished look for this side and that green panel, green brown panel. Now I'm going to do the scariest panel for me, which is the blue, gray, black panel. Well, I guess there's like silver. It's just a bunch of cool tones, and especially this gray frightens me just a tiny bit. This was the only shade in the entire palette that I was slightly iffy on because I have used gray before, but I always would put a pink on top to kind of turn it into a mauve. But now I can't really do that. I kind of just want to use this panel on its own to show that this is a really good palette for everyone to use. So I'm going to make that sacrifice for you and use this gray. Here's the 6-pan panel swatched out, and I do have to say, even though these two silvers are a different finish, like a different texture and a slightly different shade of silver, I think they are pretty close. I think especially on someone like me who has a very warm skin tone, they're going to look extra similar on the eyes. But I'll just get started with this look. And I was telling my friend Jo, who is from Jill's Makeup Corner. She also bought this palette. This was a look that I was thinking of maybe doing a gray and black smoky eye. Maybe I'll put one of the metallics on top, but I think that's what I'm gonna do to stay true to myself and to Jill. So I'm gonna start with this gray here and tap it off just a tiny bit because I don't know how stark this is gonna look on my eye, but I don't have any shade in this panel to like set my eyeshadow primer with, so I'm just going straight on top of the Milani eyeshadow primer, and I'm gonna tap it one more time because I think I tapped too much off of my brush. And then because I'm trying to go for a smoky eye, I think I'm gonna smoke out my lash line pretty well. Okay, let's see how pigmented this black shade is. I just tapped in once. Oh yeah, that's pretty pigmented, especially being on top of another shadow already. I'm glad I only tapped in once. I do see some slight skipping. I don't know if you can see it on camera, just right there. I know from experience and from what other people have said, I could get rid of that just by building it up, but I don't want to have to build up shadows, so that is slightly annoying. Maybe it just has to do with like my technique or my eyelid, but I feel like I wish that hadn't have happened. Now I'm kind of just like, with nothing else on my brush, diffusing the mixture of the I can't remember color names, the black and the gray. And I don't want to take this too far up my brow bone, because even though I have a lot of space between my crease and my brow bone, if I take black up too far, I start to look crazy. So I'm gonna stop there, and I think I will put this silver on top of my lid because it is just slightly blue toned, and this is a slightly blue toned, very cool gray, so I think they would go pretty well together. And I'm just gonna take a little bit of this. That's probably too much, honestly. Whoa, that is extremely punchy, especially layered on top of that black gray mixture. I'm gonna take this smudge brush from Dose of, you didn't ask, but it's from Dose of Colors, and I'm just gonna take as much as I can pick up of this on the brush, because it's not picking up too much on the brush. I'm just gonna tap that on the inner part of my eye because this is obviously very punchy and pigmented, and my fingers are too fat for that. And then while I'm here, I guess I'll just use it for the brush's purpose, which is to smudge out this metallic on the edges. And that worked really well, actually. Okay, I think I like this exactly how it is. I don't really want to add anything, unless I kind of wanted to see how this would be as an inner corner next to this eye, but I really like that. Okay, I'm gonna try to put this shifty shade here on my lower lash line. I'm a bit worried about getting it in my eye because it's a very flaky shade, but I'm gonna try for you guys. I'm gonna do this off camera because I'm sure I'm gonna make the ugliest faces. Okay, that actually went on a lot more easy than I thought. I don't think it really added to the look, in my opinion, just because I really loved the way this looks. And I'll take pictures at the end as well, so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. I feel like it shows up better on camera than in video for some reason. But I do think that's really pretty on the lower lash line. If you can see it, it just adds a nice pop, and everyone loves a pop. I'm gonna put on eyeliner and mascara and be back. I'm back with the eyeliner and mascara, and this time I did want to do a little bit of a wing. I don't usually put a wing with smoky eyes, but I felt like it just kind of fit the look. So this is the final look for that 6-pan panel. I know I didn't use all the shades like I did for the green group, I don't know, but maybe for my final look where I mix and match shades, I'll try to use as many of the unused shades as possible. But I just really like the way this looks as is, so I'm gonna stop there. And I will see you in 1 second with the third and final look. All right, it's the next day and I'm back to do 2 more looks, one on each eye. So again, this will be the third panel on my right eye, and then a custom like palette from all the shades that I want to use. Why am I already rambling? But this eye will be just like a custom look from mixing and matching the shades in the palette. And I'm gonna start with my right eye. So I've swatched this panel out. And again, there's another silver. It is a very pink tone silver, kind of like I was gonna say the silver version of rose gold. I could just say rose silver. So it's not like a true silver, but we do have another silverish metallic. And then we do have this pink here, which I want to compare to a shade in the volume 6. But first I'm gonna do a look with this, and I'm like not even showing you the panel. I'm so excited about this matte here. It looks so pretty. It looks like my type of kind of like dusty mauve shade that I love on myself, even though I have very, very warm undertones. As always, I have to start with my Milani eyeshadow primer, so I'm just gonna put this on both eyes right now just to save time. Also, yes, I did just pull this shirt out of my laundry basket. Don't look at the wrinkles. It's been crazy. But I'm gonna go back in with the same brushes, and with this, like the same brush I've been using for all of my mattes, I'm going to just put this shade all over my eye. I'm already so happy with this color. I think it's so pretty, and even just like to wear this on its own, I think would be like its own look. If I was trying to do something very subtle, this is just so pretty. And I don't know if it's because it's not too much deeper than my skin tone, but this is blending out perfectly without setting my eyeshadow primer, so that's already a win. And then I'm just gonna use this brush to put it on my lower lash line. So we're done with the mattes in that panel. I'm gonna put on my NYX glitter primer, which I dropped on my floor, so I'm gonna go get that and put it on this eye. This is probably the most difficult panel so far as like picking which shade to use, because I think these are all equally so pretty and I want to use them all equally as much. Just describing the shifts though, while I can see them here, I don't know, yeah, you can't, it's because I only have one lighting source. As far as you can see, you can't see the shifts, but I will try to show them better in the B-roll footage. But these, actually maybe not with this one, but these 3 middle metallics all have some sort of green shift, which maybe this one right here, the purple one, is more of like a chartreusey, like gold green shift, but these two both have green shifts. I remember in last year's palette, at least one of the pinks had an orange shift, which I really loved because orange is my favorite color. But maybe we could have seen like a pink with a blue. I'm just spitballing, Danessa, because I know, of course, you are watching this video. Next year, maybe you could do like some different shifts in all the colors, some new color combinations. I actually think I'm going to start with this one here, which is the iridescent. It just like looks so pretty swatched here. I don't know. I don't usually start with iridescence. I usually use these as toppers, but I just think it was too pretty not to use right away. And I really want to use this pink tone silver shade, but this is a bit of a thicker one. So maybe I can't decide if I want to put it on the outer or inner part of my eyelid. Maybe I'll put it on the inner part of my eyelid, but try to use a very light hand because I don't want it to look too thick on top of that iridescent. I'm already failing at this. Nothing to do with the shadow, it's just my horrible technique. But I'm gonna take some of it on that tiny brush and then try to just stamp it on the very inner part of my lid. Also, I just realized I'm probably going to end up putting a lot of cuts in this video. I'm not editing the video to make these shadows like seem better than they are and like do behind the scenes blending and like adding other stuff. I make really ugly faces when I do pretty much anything, so that's what I'm cutting out. Okay, I really like that actually. I think that worked out better than I even thought it would and prettier than I imagined in my mind. So you can actually make, this is probably the thickest shade in this panel. It's one of those kind of just like super thick, heavy, punchy metallics. But if you use a very light hand and then you kind of blend it out with your finger, you can make it look very thin and kind of just smooth and super light. I think that looks insanely pretty. I'm gonna take this shade on my inner corner. This actually kind of reminds me of a shade also from the first Freedom palette. Maybe I'll swatch those together as well. I'm trying to make sure you can see everything, but I need to look at my mirror. Try to be very careful with this. And then swoop it out. That's the inner corner. Also, I kind of forgot to mention, but I usually do my eyeshadow before the rest of my face makeup. I've been using some new stuff for my face makeup. I made a Franken cream bronzer contour, which is why my cheeks look a little crazy, so don't pay attention to that part. But what I meant to say from all this was I have not noticed absolutely any fallout from any of the shades on my makeup so far, so that's good. I remember last year's I did have a little bit, but this time I'm not seeing any. Now I'm gonna take this shade, which I wish you could see the green shift in there. I'm going to try, because this one looks like it is picking up pretty well on the brush, even though I hate putting powder shades that have glitter on my lower lash line, because I can get glitter in my eye from that sometimes. I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna try to stamp it on, so bear with me. Starting here. Oh, that's already so pretty. Full pigment just from that one stamp. I really like the way that looks, and I think, I don't know if I should put that shade or this final purple shade, like purple with a green shift, in my outer corner, because I like the way this looks, but I feel like I could add some depth, especially after putting that deeper shade on my lower lash line. I kind of want to balance out the top lid. I don't know, these shades look fairly similar, just this one is the purple, this one's the pink. You can see a difference, but the fact that they have a similar shift, that kind of bright green, does make them feel a little bit similar. I'll just use the purple one so I can use all the shades in this panel, but I don't exactly know how it's gonna apply. And just blending out the edge. That's it. Applied to the eye, it doesn't look as deep as it does in the pan and on my finger, I think because it's catching the light so well. It reflects so much light that it starts to look a little bit bright, but it is still deeper than everything else on my top lid, so that's fine with me. But now I'm gonna add some eyeliner and mascara, and then maybe choose my shades for this eye, and then I'll be back. We have just had a casualty. As I was taking out the black shade to use, I was using my matchsticks magnet as always, and it took the shadow right out of the pan. I don't know if that would have happened anyway, or if the shadow was a little loose from being kicked around in the box, but that's kind of crazy actually. All right, I got the rest of the shadows that I wanted by just kind of taking them out with my finger. You can, I should have just done that in the first place, but there is a little divot, so you can just like pop these out. You don't need to use a magnet, and I would not recommend using a magnet after that. But I made my like custom palette with this, so I just chose, this is the kind of like lid setting shade from the green brown panel. Sorry, I'm trying to get an angle so I don't blind you. These are the two shades from the blue, gray, black panel that, well, no more black in there anymore, but the two that I didn't use. And then this is the gray from there as well. This one is the blue topper from that blue panel, just because I want to see what it looks like on top of everything, especially to kind of mute this blue a little bit. And then this is the purple with the green shift from the pink palette. And this is what the shades look like swatched out. Okay, no wonder that looked different. I meant to grab a different shade. This is the topper from the green palette. I don't know why I grabbed that. it did look different to me. So I'm gonna grab the actual blue topper, and this is what it looks like instead of that. But that's what the palette looks like. My custom 6-pan palette looks like swatched. I'm gonna start by setting my eyeshadow primer with that first matte shade. Then I'm gonna put that gray matte just pretty much everywhere. And now that I've set my eyeshadow primer, not that I think I would need to be able to use this, but now that I've set my eyeshadow primer, I'm gonna try to like really build it and see how intense I can get it without looking like too scary on my skin tone. I feel like I'm hunched over, but that's because I need to be able to look in my mirror, which is like way down there. And I'm just gonna put a tiny bit more of the gray on my brush and try to get it on this like inner corner part, you know, my swoop. Then again, I'm just gonna put a tiny bit of this on my lower lash line. I just put my NYX glitter primer on my entire eyelid, even the outer corner, because I'm going to put a little bit of this blue kind of on the outer half of my eye. After watching Steph's video, I know that this is like pretty pigmented and goes a very long way, so I don't want to get it too far, but I mean, I feel like I kind of already failed at that. And then I'm gonna put this purple green shade on my inner half of my eye, and then I'll take this detailed brush and kind of just pinpoint like the outer and inner parts of my eye that weren't covered. And I probably didn't need to do this, but I'm just using this brush to kind of like blend the two together. That color combination in the middle looks really pretty. Now I'm gonna take this topper here and just put it all over my entire eye, starting on the blue side, and then I'm gonna diffuse it into the purple side. Now I'm just gonna add a tiny bit more gray on the outer parts of my eye, because I think the metallic, even though it doesn't look horrible, the metallic kind of stuck to the glitter primer a little too well, and I want it to look kind of like nice and, you know, blended as it should. And that actually did a really good job of doing that really quickly. So I think I'm done with that part. Then I just put a little tiny bit of this silver on my pinky. Hopefully this doesn't go everywhere, but I want to use it as an inner corner shade. That is so pretty as an inner corner shade. It's incredibly sparkly and like really sheer, so I probably could use this as a topper as well, but I really like that. And I'm just gonna put a tiny bit more again on my swoop. I love talking about my swoop. I think maybe because the lower lash line looks a bit bare, I'll try to mirror this purple shade is so flaky, it's gonna be so difficult. I'm gonna try to mirror the top to the bottom. Okay, that did give fallout like right below my eye, but I'm not surprised because that's a very flaky shade, like I said, and it's difficult to stick, especially because I didn't put any sort of glitter primer on my lower eyelid. And I got some of that blue shadow in my eyes, so I'm gonna stop doing that now. I'm gonna put on some eyeliner and mascara and be right back. Okay, this is the finished look with this color story. Well, not that one there, but this shade. I think it's really pretty. I'm gonna have to dwell on that black shade because I feel like that was really a miss. So that's everything for this palette. I'm filming this right after I filmed my intro, but I just kind of wanted to sum up all of my thoughts now that I've had this palette for a few weeks and I've been using it and looking at it and swatching it, and I've kind of like gone through all the steps to get a replacement palette after one of my shades cracked, and I'm watching other people's looks with this palette. I am 50-50 with this palette, to be quite honest, and I think especially if I had paid, I mean technically like I still did pay because I used my $100 gift card, but if I had paid $128 cash for this, and already having the first Freedom palette and everything, like including having all those dupes, having a cracked shade, also the fact that the shade is clearly like magnetic for it to be pulled out by a magnet. That's like very suspicious. I would really be upset, to be quite honest, and I'm still like, after everything is said and done, I am going to keep this palette for comparisons and talking about this palette in the future. But yeah, I am going to keep this palette just for my own collection, but I feel like I would probably be upset and want to return this palette having known all of the things that I know now about it. I just think that the fact that I'm missing a shade and there are a bunch of other shades that only look different really in bright artificial lighting, to be overlapping that much between and only separated by a year, and then to be claiming that there are absolutely no dupes between the palettes, that is just a little bit annoying as a consumer. And when you're charging that much money, I'm happy to pay as much money as it takes to get really good quality. If I'm paying that money, I want the quality to be delivered. I'm not just going to pay for nothing. So if you are a collector, or if you see some shades in here that I did not mention as shade dupes in this palette that you just really want to have in your collection, or if you don't have the first Freedom palette, I would say then this palette is definitely a good choice. Be careful with that black shade. Do not use a magnet to take it out. Just use a little divot and take it out by hand. But otherwise, I think, you know, I would recommend this palette. But if you already have last year's and you have a large makeup collection anyway, and none of these shades specifically are really speaking to you, then I would say it's safe to skip this year's palette. I never thought I would say that. That being said, I will continue to use and have fun with this eyeshadow palette because there are still plenty of shades that are unique to just this palette and my entire collection, and her special shades are just some of the most special shades I have in my entire collection, including Pat McGrath, whose eyeshadows I love. I really love the shades in here and I'll continue using them and enjoying them. But I would say it's kind of like 50-50 whether or not I think you should get this. Definitely watch other people's reviews and swatches and their thoughts of this palette. Also, if you can, get this palette while it's on sale, while you still can get it, because I believe that once these are gone, they're going to be gone forever. Like, I don't think she really keeps them around past the end of the year. But that's it for this video. Let me know some of your thoughts if you have any thoughts on this palette. If you have anything that you really thought about this that I didn't mention, or maybe a different perspective, different thoughts, I really want as much information for anyone who's going to watch this video as possible, because again, it is a high price tag and it's something that a lot of people have been trying to get their hands on that will be gone soon. So I don't want anyone to make a rash purchase or to leave something behind that they would have wanted. So that's all I have to say, but I will just see you in my next video, and until then, I hope you have a great day or night. Thank you for watching. Bye.